Hello and welcome to another episode of League One Lowdown here on the Deck Network. I'm Callum, and as always on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whenever you listen to this one, I'm joined by Sam. Good afternoon as we're recording it, although it feels like evening. Good evening,
Yeah.
afternoon, Sam.
Hello, Callum. How are we?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's been a decent week so far, especially for Lincoln City fans.
Mhm.
How's life as an Orient fan?
It's looking much rosier, Callum. I'm glad you asked. A 3-0 win against Blackpool, as Jamie and Seb spoke about on Monday in their review show, and then getting through the Bristol Street Motors Trophy last night with a 3-1 victory against
Beautiful.
Franchise FC, which is lovely stuff.
Beautiful stuff. A bit later on, we're going to have a look and reflect, probably quite shamefully, on some of our predictions from before the season. But a few bits of housekeeping and news, and a few games this weekend to look ahead to. So, starting off with the predictions, Sam, it wasn't a great week for either of us, was it?
I think the perfect word for it is shambolic. I think it's the worst week we've had in nearly a year of doing this together.
Yeah, 7 points between us. Both of us got a point for the Barnsley versus Rotherham game and the Wigan versus Wickham game. Sam, you got a point for Posh versus Cambridge because for some reason I predicted, quite foolishly, Cambridge to cause an upset there. I probably should have seen that one coming. But I got a point for Burton against Shrewsbury, which, predicting a Burton win has paid
Finally
off.
paid off.
And then I backed you, Orient against Blackpool, seeing the light where I suppose you don't, but 7 points. It leaves the score. It would just, it's tight, isn't it? I think it's 103 to 99, so 4 points in it when you do the maths. So yeah, not. I'm closing in, but I can't really take any pride in this week at all, can I?
No, I don't think either of us can we? Normally we're getting, 10, 11 points, which ain't too bad. But between us, out of the 12 games, we're probably getting 8 or 9 correct outcomes. But
Yeah.
what a weird weekend of League One action we had. And I think it was kind of showcased with the types of games we have. We didn't really have a standout game. It was they're all very closely packed teams, shall we say, that played each other.
Yeah, it was one of them where some of the good teams were away from home and whatnot. It was a difficult week to predict, but anyway, the main bit of housekeeping, I suppose, we'll move on to some of the games that are coming up and cover them quite quickly, I suppose. But the big news that dropped earlier today was Gareth Ainsworth at Shrewsbury Town. Sam, your I suppose breaking reaction to that story that was only released earlier today.
I think it's an excellent bit, best bit of business Shrewsbury have done in a very long time. He's a manager who, to be fair to him, he went to QPR when they were in turmoil. He left QPR, and then Cifuentes obviously went in, did a decent job, but look where they are this season. There is a deeper underlying problem at QPR than the manager. So I think Ainsworth was harshly treated. If we could just look at some of the players he brought in at QPR, he was harshly done by. At Wickham, he managed over 500 matches, which is near enough unheard of nowadays to have a manager even manage over 200, let alone 500. And he took them from League Two, keeping them up, I believe, on the final day of the League Two season, when if they did get relegated, they'd have probably gone out of business, to getting them to the Championship. And should, in my opinion, have stayed up, because I think that was the season where Derby had financial issues, but they didn't get that enforced until next year. And the job he did at Wickham, especially in League One, on a budget that was limited, and he had a forward called Akinfenwa up front, bearing in mind in League One, who, to be fair to him, was never a bad striker, but he got the best out of every single player in that team, and he's excellent on a shoestring budget, which Shrewsbury have. They've probably got the second or third smallest budget in League One, playing squad-wise, and we know he can get the best out of them.
Yeah, he's a real tactician. This is the record I've got in front of me is 550 games, in charge, with 219 wins, 137 draws, and 194 defeats. So a win percentage of near enough 40% when he was in charge of Wickham. If you take into account his caretaker spells at QPR and his managerial spell at QPR, that slips slightly to 38.5%. if you have that sort of win record, if he just carries on that kind of average win record, not saying he will do, but even slightly behind that, below that, you're looking at a decent job and one that'll probably see Shrewsbury stay up, you'd imagine.
Yeah, I would expect so. I think we've got some very weak teams in League One this year, and having a manager who can change your perspective mentally, especially when being in a relegation battle. We know he's quite an upbeat man. Like, we just have to watch some of the videos when he was at QPR. I think he will bring the squad together. Not to say Paul Hurst didn't do that, but Ainsworth, I think, is a very good manager. And I think while their squad lacks in a little bit of quality, they do have some very decent players, mainly loanees. I think the most important thing for Shrewsbury is don't be too far adrift in January and let him get a couple of players in. And they will probably be experienced players if you just have to look at the squad he built at Wickham. And it'll probably also be a very different style of play. It was very rare he played a back three, which is what Shrewsbury have played most of this season. He mainly played a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 type shape at QPR and at Wickham previously. Will the football be entertaining? No. Will he be entertaining in interviews and on the touchline? Yes. Does he have a track record of getting results in League One and keeping clubs up? Yes. So it's probably the best appointment that Shrewsbury probably could have done, to be honest.
Yeah, and I suppose after a defeat on the pitch to Burton Albion, it's probably dealt them quite a big defeat in terms of the managerial position. So, yeah, it kind of leaves Burton in a spot of bother. But I suppose John Brayford, I think, is he in caretaker charge at the minute there?
It's Tom Hounswell alongside Brayford.
They see, well, I suppose, you can't take too much from the EFL trophy, can you? But I think they scored 5 against Northampton, which I'm sure they were playing probably rotated sides and whatnot, but still, that some positive signs as well coming out from Burn. So we'll wait and see. I suppose it's an interesting situation for both teams to be involved in. And who knows? Maybe after all of this talk, we'll see Shrewsbury stay up. 5 games then this weekend. We'll get through them quite quickly. So one game that probably stands out from the rest, but we'll come to that one last. The first one is the only surviving quote TV unquote match, which is Exeter against Lincoln. An interesting one. This one has become my kind of catchphrase at the minute. If you want merch with that, please let me know. A long trip for Lincoln, as it is for anyone, down to Exeter, a game that's already got a little bit of controversy, considering Exeter have asked for this game to be called off, but clearly haven't read the rules themselves about player registration and call-ups and stuff like that. So they've only got themselves to blame, really. And I'm not biased at all when I say that. So yeah, Sam, your thoughts on this?
I don't understand. So from 2 perspectives. One, I've said this many times. I firmly believe League One should just have a break. Do what the Championship do. We have enough call-ups now. Like you say, we've got 5 games on that should be 4. Exeter, obviously, I know they have players on standby lists, but Exeter could probably have still gone to the EFL and said, right, we've got 2 players called up and 1 on a reserve list. Can we cancel the game? The EFL would have said yes, to be honest. The EFL wouldn't have said no. But because obviously that 3rd player has now been called up and they didn't go prior approval, they now have to play without 3 arguably starters in their squad, which is an unfair advantage, shall we say. I know I had a conversation with some people on our Twitter account. If you're not following us, make sure you do, at League One Lowdown. That every club should just be playing anyway, which is a fair argument. But the argument against that is you're going to have certain clubs who have obscure nations or a lot of under-21 players, and 6 or 7 of their players may disappear, which then is an unfair and is a detriment to the competition at the same time, I think. But I've gone on record and said just postpone the league for a week, or do what I would do and just have 1 international break through the season instead of 4.
I think the thing that stood out for me in terms of this game was, obviously, because of the distance, you've got a lot of Lincoln fans who have already booked hotels and trains and coach travel and things like that. So to call it off at 4 days' notice, you got no chance of getting refunds and things like that. So the game goes ahead. That's the rules. In terms of what will happen on the pitch, Lincoln in good form, decent away form as well. They've won 2. They weren't at it last week against Bristol Rovers, so 2 wins and a draw in the last 3 for Lincoln compared to Exeter. 2 defeats and, of course, a win last time out. I've gone 2-1 Lincoln, maybe a bit rose-tinted eyeglasses there, but I think Lincoln rested a lot of first-team players last night, barely played any, so they'll have a full-strength squad going down to Exeter, so I'm pretty confident.
I would agree. I'd say 2-1 to... Oh, actually, no, I'm going to go 2-0 Lincoln.
Okay, interesting.
I'll go 2-0.
So another game, these are the 3 p.m. kickoffs. Blackpool, Northampton. Blackpool in probably the biggest rut of anyone in the league, and that now includes Burton Albion have overtaken them. I've not got my form table, but I imagine they're bottom of that at the minute.
Of the last 6, Blackpool are bottom.
100%. Well, they're having an absolute mare. We know a lot of that isn't really helped. Obviously, we all know what's happened with Steve Bruce, and obviously not been involved in much of the day-to-day running of the club and whatnot. But they're slipping down the table now, 18th, 16 points, just 4 above that relegation zone, which they were in not so long ago. They're also in the playoffs not so long ago. So who knows what's happening with Blackpool's season. But Northampton now find themselves ahead of Blackpool on goal difference, albeit. But I've backed Northampton in this one, 2-1. I think it'll be tight, and I think Blackpool will start to get going. But I just think it's Northampton's to lose.
I'm going to go the opposite way and go 2-1 to Blackpool. I think Blackpool are quite a decent side going forward, but they have frailties defensively. But I don't think Northampton are that good offensively. So I think they'll cancel each other out, and Blackpool will get the victory.
Cool. I nearly said interesting then, and I was like, what's the first word that comes to my mind that's not interesting? Bristol Rovers against Crawley. Bristol Rovers, we know, a point last time out against Lincoln City. Crawley, 2 draws on the bounce. So I don't want to say it's not really a relegation match. Bristol Rovers they were around there. They've done all right to escape it, but again, only 5 points separate the 2 sides. I've gone stalemate in this one, 1-1.
I'm going to go 2-1 to Bristol Rovers. Lots of 2-1s flying around this week.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? It does feel like all teams at the minute have got the capability to score, but it might not work out. Cambridge, the weirdest side at the minute, I think. They went on this incredible run, 9 points, and now they've lost again. Quite comprehensively. We were all saying, Cambridge are saved, and now straight back. We point out that if they hadn't gone on that mini run, which God knows where it had come from, there'd have been 13 points from safety. So I don't know what miracle happened for those 3 games in a row, but they played Barnsley, who I think we spoke pre-show. They've crept up to 4th. Who knows how they've done that? So I've gone 2-0 Barnsley. I think Barnsley will probably, I don't want to say rest a few players, but they'll probably find it quite easy and just get the job done.
I'm going 3-0 to Barnsley. They're quite good away from home, and obviously Cambridge on the back of 5 clean sheets and then ruining it all by conceding 6. I just think Barnsley just have too much firepower and are in excellent form.
I think we kind of, when we laugh at Cambridge, we're not laughing at them. I think we're laughing with the fans, because I think they also find the situation quite funny. Annoying, I imagine, but also a bit funny, I'd imagine. And then for me, the game of the weekend, I think for most people, the game of the weekend, Stockport against Wrexham. If I was actually looking at which games I'd put on TV, this one would probably be the TV game for me that I'd most like to watch. 3rd against 6th. Sixth against 3rd, I should say. Wrexham unbeaten in 5. Stockport, they've had a bit of a wobble as of late, but 2 wins in their last 3 has got them back into those playoff spots. I've gone 2-2 in this one.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because neither side, they very rarely lose. Like the 5 losses between them. I am going to back Stockport because I've rated their business all season, and I will go for them to win 2-1. But I think they are a bit like Peterborough at the moment. You don't really know what you're going to get with them. Like they conceded 5 in the week, I believe it was, to Wickham, and then rock up at home to Bolton and go and smack them. And Bolton, we've mentioned many times about Bolton. We don't really know what we're getting with them either, to be honest. But the league is so congested, isn't it, at the moment? We've got 6 points separating third place Wrexham to 11th place Exeter.
Yeah. We've also got 9 points separating Barnsley down to Blackpool, and that's 4th down to 18th, which is very, very close. So quite exciting times in League One. I'd say one of the leagues to watch at the minute. We're going to move on to the reflective part. We're going to put on some quiet, relaxing piano music and reflect on how terrible our predictions were at the start of the year. I think there might have been a few decent ones in there, but a lot of them are probably going to be quite shameful. We'll start off with the side that we predicted to finish 24th. Crawley Town. After 3 or 4 games, dare I say, this one we all had egg on our face. But currently they've slipped down to 21st. And other than that win against Lincoln, which kind of came out of nowhere, and 2 draws are not doing too well. This one I don't think is too bad, is it?
No, this one I think is generally fine. The bottom 4, like we say, is 4 points separating 21st to 24th. They're in the bottom 4. We've predicted them in the bottom 4. I think as long as you get them, I always say if you get them between 2 places or in the relegation zone, you're generally all right.
Yeah.
So I think Crawley Town, we're all right at the moment.
Crawley, I'll say we'll do all right. 23rd then. Who did we predict? Shrewsbury Town.
We're okay
Again,
with this one.
We're literally one place. I think you've got them spot on from your pre-season predictions, but will that change with Gareth Ainsworth? I suppose that's the big question. So
I still think if they're going to stay up, the team I think that will drop in will be Northampton. But I think the bottom 4 as it is will be the bottom 4 that go down.
Interesting. 22nd. Then this one is probably this one's the biggest shocker. I think, to be fair, a lot of people other than Mansfield Town fans might have said this, but we predicted Mansfield Town to finish 22nd.
Yeah, and there was 3 of us that did as well.
Yeah,
the only one who didn't was the owner of the deck, Ryan, who then gave it. It's like, what the hell are you thinking when you saw this come out when we did the predictions at the start of the season?
I mean, maybe a lack of research, I suppose, on the players they'd bought in and whatnot, but I don't really know what we can say about this one. It's
Mansfield fans.
Sorry, I suppose. I mean,
Callum, you have a reputation with them at the moment.
I mean, I've come in for a lot of stick about Mansfield, but can we all remember that it wasn't just me who predicted them to finish below the table, was it? So my reputation is still in tatters in Mansfield, and I won't be stepping foot in your wonderful town for the foreseeable future. 21st then, who was the last side we predicted to go down? Cambridge United. So again, only 1 spot off collectively. Jamie, I think we need to just throw a few tomato and wet sponges at, because what he was thinking, 14th. I mean, if you go on that form that you did, 3 wins every now and then, maybe, but I think I don't want to say they're doomed, but they are very obviously one of the worst 4 sides in the division. I don't want to say the worst, but
I think regardless of what they do in January, I think they are done for, to be honest. Unless they come out and sign Messi, then I don't think they've got the quality in their squad. And you've got Shrewsbury have now got a very good experienced manager for the level. So I think they will be the team that creeps up. Crawley, who knows what's going on at Crawley? Rob Elliott's gone in. To be fair to him, in the last 4, only lost 1 league game, so he's doing a decent job. But do they have the quality to stay up in League One? Probably not. Burton are unbeaten in 2, but who knows what they're doing with their manager at the moment. But like I said, I think the team, if we're going to see a team drop in, it'll probably be Northampton or it'll be Stevenage. They're the 2 I'm going for.
Yeah, perhaps. So in 20th at the minute is Leyton Orient, but we predicted Stevenage. They're currently 14th.
Hmm.
They're having a very indifferent season, I suppose. But if their form from the last 4 matches carries on, they could be in a spot of bother. Sam, you were nearly spot on with
Hmm.
your prediction.
Yeah, I think Stevenage, if you look at their form, it's 1 win in 6. So they can't score goals. They're the lowest scorers in the division. Even Shrewsbury have scored more goals than them, and Cambridge have scored more goals than Stevenage. Defensively, we all thought a couple of weeks ago they were pretty solid. I know they've had injuries and I know they've had suspensions, but they've now conceded 16. So the defensive frailties are now showing. And do they have a manager who is tactically good enough to adapt? I said this at the start of the season. There's reason I put them 21st is I don't think they do.
Yeah. Well, maybe they will slip down. Maybe well, we'll have to wait and see. But on current form, it's not looking good. But I suppose if they're 14th and they survive for another season, that's all that
That's fine for
Stevenage
them.
will really care about. And finally, before we go to a quick ad break, 19th place. This one, not too
We're doing all right.
shabby. Northampton Town. I suppose other than Mansfield, we've been kind of spot on, really. Northampton Town, we predicted 19th. They're currently 17th. Yeah, Sam, you went with 20th, as did I. I think the tale for Northampton is they'll survive, but it won't be pretty.
No, I totally agree with that. Obviously, I've said that as of 2 minutes ago that I think they could be one of the teams to drop in, just because if we look at statistics, they're bottom in near enough every offensive stat, every defensive stat. They're a bit like Bristol Rovers, who statistically aren't very good, but Bristol Rovers have that individual quality in their front line to bail them out, which I don't think Northampton have at the moment. So my opinion hasn't changed on Northampton, regardless if they've only lost 1 in 5 at the moment.
Yeah, very, very. I don't know. I don't want to say hairy times for Northampton ahead because they might just 4 points is it's not comfortable to the relegation zone, but it's not worry central at all. So yeah, Northampton, all right, I suppose. But Ryan, I think, a bit optimistic there with 14th. We'll go to a quick ad break now, and then we'll be back with the rest of our predictions in just a few seconds. And welcome back to the League One Lowdown with me and Sam, me being Callum. Let's move on to who we predicted to finish in 18th place then. Exeter City. It's always tough for Exeter. We know obviously the situation they're in as a fan-owned club and all the financial, I don't want to say hardships, but challenges that come along with that. That they're doing all right. They're outperforming where we expected them to be. I suppose only just, but with how tight the league is, 11th place could become 18th in 2 weeks. It's how the league goes.
Yeah, 100%. I think for Exeter to be a consistent League One club is an achievement in itself. As you say, they are a fan-owned club, which is extremely rare nowadays, and I think it's brilliant how they run that football club. Like, they are one of the only clubs that don't lose money. I think for last season was the first time they ever lost money. They're consistent in what they do. They're an extremely defensively solid side, while not being the most expansive going forward, which we associate with Exeter City teams of old. But to maintain their League One status again this year is an achievement, I think.
I do find it quite funny, just briefly looking at the league table. You go from Exeter City in 11th, who have scored 14, conceded 10, sorry, and then go to Peterborough below them, who have scored 31, conceded 27. Two completely different styles of football there.
The only team to not to keep a clean sheet as well, Peterborough now.
Oh dear, I just find it quite funny looking at that. On to who we thought would finish 17th, and another one that on paper looks quite shambolic, but with how tight the league is, it's not too bad. Reading, Jamie the closest with 10th, they're currently 9th. Ryan's had a howler there. Sam, your thoughts?
I think he was banking on them getting a points deduction, which, with the way the ownership's still going, could still happen. But Ruben Sellés, I was going to say arguably his manager of the season so far, but it's very difficult not to give it to Bloomfield. But for the job he's doing with the personnel he's got, they do have quality in their squad. But what's to say they're not going to sod off in January if they're not going to get paid again? So we just hope the off-the-field issues sort themselves out at Reading, because they've got a very talented young squad and manager at the moment.
Yeah. You think that, like, with how good the players are performing, almost just playing for the shirt, you'd think just one or two decent additions, maybe experience-wise, potentially even challenging for the playoffs. And we say that like they're not 1 point off and challenging for the playoffs anyway. I think we're all kind of expecting them to, as the season goes on, to kind of like just stutter a little bit. But you know, they're having a great season by all accounts. On to 16th then, and I don't want to say we're having a howler on this one, but Burton Albion, I've had a howler, but collectively, I think it's understandable why we put them 16th, with obviously all the news of new owners and, you know, what at the time looked like a promising manager coming in. Obviously, spent time at Chelsea and whatnot. So, yeah, Burton's a difficult one, isn't it? There's reasons why we put them collectively 16th, but there's also reasons that they're 23rd.
Yeah, 100%. I think we were looking at it more from an outsider perspective in terms of there's a very buoyant mood around the club after a pretty poor couple of seasons. A complete overhaul with playing squad, managers, everything. Is it a surprise, like I've said on previous podcasts, to see where they are at the moment? Not really. Takes ages to bed in new players. They had new manager. And as I said, looking back at all the players they've now bought, how many were actually League One quality? So I can see why they are 23rd. If we spent a day actually researching like this was our full-time jobs, then we'd have probably predicted them a little bit lower.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take away from the fact that, you know, Orsi's having a great season. To be fifth top goal scorer in a side in the relegation zone is always quite impressive. And Burton, they could turn around. It could have just been the manager. Do you know what I mean? Those players 100%. Might have been League One quality, and it might have just been a shoddy manager. You never know. So we'll have to wait and see. 15th is with like. Shall we just skip this one?
Yeah,
I think we were just going off precedent, I suppose, and kind of, you know, Wycombe have always, you know, in recent seasons they've kind of been, I don't want to say dripping backwards, but becoming a bit more settled as a League One mid-table side. And Ryan, I mean, I dare say Ryan's had the most, like, he must have thought they were in a relegation scrap. But Wycombe, they're having an incredible season. It's kind of come out of nowhere, I think, but just that consistency, the reliability of how often they're scoring is impeccable.
Yeah, averaging more than 2 goals a game. To score more than 31, which was Peterborough's, is a rather impressive feat after 14 games to have 32 goals. I've watched Wycombe when they played us going forward, and their rotations and the clinicalness of their strikers is unbelievable. And they're not half bad defensively either. They've got units at the back. Bloomfield's got them playing a bit like an Ainsworth Wycombe in a way. They're a bit. They know how to win a game of football when they take the lead. They do all the dark arts extremely well.
To me, it's one of them that, you know, you see fans on X or Blue Sky now, I suppose, and Facebook and whatnot, all nattering away, and they'll say, "Oh, Wycombe, you know, they'll fall away at some point." So when we're looking at the table at the end of the season, we won't include them. I think it's well past the point now where we have to kind of consider that they will be in that top six. I think, you know, they can lose 3 games on a trot and still probably be comfortably in the top 6. So they're having a great season, and fair play to Wycombe. We'll hold our hands up. I think sometimes you just have to and say, we're sorry. This one, we're only 2 off, so much better. I've actually got them spot on, which I don't know how often that's happened so far in these predictions.
Twice, I think.
Yeah, it's not a very common occurrence. But yeah, Bristol Rovers currently 16th. We collectively predicted them to be 14th. It's one of them. They could go downhill, but it most likely will stay about there.
Yeah, this one, I don't think we've got anything really bad to say. I think Bristol Rovers are just a lower mid-table League One team.
And I think that for the people of Bristol who aren't City fans, that's probably all you can ask for. Just a consistent League One side. You can go and enjoy your football, and I guess that's what matters for them. Next up, so there's not really much to mention. I don't want to say another shocker because it could easily go this way, or it could easily, they're kind of in a position where they could go forward, or they could kind of stutter and come backwards. I've had a mare, so I'm not going to talk about this too much. I'll leave Sam in the hands, and I just won't mention anything.
I'm surprised I actually put them 12th. I'm not going to lie, considering how much I raved about their summer business. And we have been told numerous times in the comment section of our YouTube videos that our geography is appalling. And that's a cumulative 4, that Stockport County is meant to be called Stockport County, and they're based in Cheshire. So we apologise to Stockport County fans for offending you by saying you're in the Greater Manchester region. So you are definitely in Cheshire. And if that's wrong, then that's not our fault. We've been told. So apologies. But yeah, I raved about their summer recruitment. I thought it was exceptional. They've had a good start to the season with only 3 defeats. I think at the end of the season, they'll probably be in the region of 10th to 15th. Yeah. I think that is probably where they're going to finish, unless there is some heavy investment in January. There's a chance that some of their loanees, like Louis Barry, could get recalled and put in a championship squad. That wouldn't be surprising. So yeah, I think we're not too far off the curve. While there is a 7 position discrepancy at the moment, as you've mentioned, the gap is 4 or 5 points to the position.
Yeah, it's literally, I think, 5 points between them. But that changes in an instant, doesn't it? In League One, into the top half of the table, then Leyton Orient. This is a bit of a mare. You've had the biggest mare, Sam. Maybe some rose tinted glasses there, but 20th, not the season you or Orient fans would have wanted so far, but maybe a few optimistic signs.
Yeah, 100%. I'm one of the more positive Orient fans. If you search the hashtag LOFC after a defeat, it is one of the most negative places I think I've ever seen. I went back through all our fixtures and I've watched most of our games fully, and I worked out we should probably have around, I know football's not played like this, but performance-wise, we should have an extra 8 points, which, if you do that, would be 22, which puts you 12th.
Yeah.
So, and I still firmly believe that is where we will end up. Our squad has quality. We've got an excellent manager. We've won 2 of our last 3. It's around this period last year where we really kicked into gear. My only concern is the number of loanees we have at the moment. But I think there's enough positive signs coming out of the football club at the moment to say we will still finish anywhere between 16th and 10th, where we've all predicted them. So I don't think, while we are 20th, we win the game and a couple of teams lose, we are up into 16th, 17th. So I don't think we're too far off on this one.
That all changes. Up to 11th then, and Wigan Athletic. I think I don't know if they'd be disappointed with their season so far. They were quite impressive towards the end of last season, but just not really doing a whole lot. They're not conceding many, but they're also scoring the same amount, I suppose. Yeah. Their games just seem, I don't want to say their games seem a bit boring, but they just don't sound very exciting at the minute. And we predicted them to be 11th, currently 19th. Jamie, and to be fair, you've had a shocker, if I'm honest. Playoff contenders is not really.
Yeah, they've surprised me with how poor I think they've been and how lackluster in front of goal they've been. They obviously lost Charlie Hughes defensively, but they've signed well. They signed Will Aimson, who I particularly liked the signing of. They had Luke Chambers at left back on loan from, I think it was Liverpool, but he's gone back because he is injured. But they've got no win in 5 now. They don't look like they know where the back of their net is. So I think where Ryan's predicted them is 15th is probably where they're going to end up, to be honest. So I think this one is a poor prediction.
Yeah. Into the top 10 then, and Lincoln City, I think me and Ryan kind of, we and Jamie as well, to be fair, I think we all follow Lincoln quite a lot. This was a kind of a Lincoln heavy prediction. We all know how Lincoln City work, and we kind of imagined this to be a bit of a transition year. We were coming off the high of the low, I suppose, of missing out on the playoffs. So we were all like, this will be a bit of a rebuilding season and then ready to go again the year after. But what's happening at Lincoln is quite impressive. Okay, that few bad results when you look at Crawley and whatnot, but fifth at the minute is really a lot better than I think a lot of Imps fans were expecting.
Oh, 100%. But what I will say is if you lose one game and a couple of teams below you win, you could drop to 11th. It's so close.
Yeah,
but
it is.
The most important signing you've made in the past 6 months is signing on Skabala for another new contract.
100%. Yeah.
Obviously, we were concerned with the lack of goals that you were going to have, but Cadamartri, everyone's chipping in at Lincoln, aren't they? Which is a real team effort.
And the one sign I will say, I know you say it's Skabala, but Tendai Darikwa, honestly, what a steal he has been. I think we got him from Cyprus. He has been next level. Just the experience he's got. I was talking to Jovan Makama the other day, and you've kind of got this system now where you've got Tendai's the lead of all of these, kind of player groups, if you put it in a football manager context. And below that, you've got the kind of like the middle tier of players, your Ben Houses and whatnot. And then below that, you've got another level of players coming through, and it's the system at Lincoln is incredible. So anyway, on to the next one of Blackpool. It's I think the instability is the kind of the thing that's kind of caught us out here, and I suppose like we always say with Blackpool at the minute, a lot of that is not really something we could have predicted, obviously, and obviously personal issues and personal matters, come into this. But again, not the season Blackpool would have wanted by any means.
No, I think sacking Critchley was it the right decision? I think it was, but I think they got the wrong man in, being harsh. I think they needed a young, exuberant sort of manager with the type of players they've got, rather than someone who was that experienced as Steve Bruce has been out of the game a couple of years. He was more of a name, and you got that immediate impact. Obviously, I've watched Blackpool play us at the weekend, extremely one-dimensional. Get the ball wide, get crosses into the box, but they don't have that sort of big unit of a striker, which I know they've got Ashley Fletcher, but I really don't rate Ashley Fletcher at all. Jordan Rhodes is a penalty box type striker, and I think if you partnered him with Ballard, and then you've got Carl Joseph, you do have goal scorers, but defensively they're a mess. Like, they are a real mess. I think they probably will end up lower mid-table, to be honest. I don't think they're going to get anywhere near our 9th place prediction.
Yeah, Blackpool they've conceded the most in the league. When you've conceded one more than Peterborough and two more than Crawley, Cambridge, or Burton, it's not great. They've even conceded more than Shrewsbury as well, so not great. On to Barnsley. I suppose this one, I don't want to say a bit, but you're the one that's kind of weighed this down, because you've got me and Ryan in 6th, which is probably very respectable. Jamie's kind of weighing it down, and you've just had a plot here.
I can't believe I predicted them 15th, purely because if you looked at the calibre of players they lost, and when we did the predictions, they didn't have Keel or Dunn.
No.
I know one player doesn't change the whole outcome of a club, but when you've got a player of Keel or Dunn's quality, which is exactly what Barnsley were missing, it can project them into what was a very tight mid-table, up 5 or 6 places. But I didn't expect them to currently be 4th. I expected them probably to be around 8th or 9th, let's put it that way, after the signing of Keel or Dunn. So that's the bad thing about, I suppose, doing predictions before the start of the season. Clubs haven't finished their transfer business. In hindsight, I should probably put them around 8th or 9th, but as the way is predictions, I haven't.
So I'll take the moral victory on that one.
Yes,
on to 7th then, and Wrexham. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I suppose when you look at the stats, this one's 7th is probably about right, but they're not 7th, they're 3rd, and that's what matters. You're probably the one that comes out of this one looking the best, because you're the only one that's got them in the playoffs, but quite tight. Like we always preface, I know Wrexham are a bit ahead of the gaggle behind them, but again, they're only 4 points off 7th, so it's not like we're miles away at this stage of the season.
No, 100%. And I said a couple of weeks ago that if you looked at expected points tables, Wrexham will be lower mid-table. So I think there will be a fall-off coming, but there is also a January transfer window on the horizon. And what's to say that Wrexham, the owners, see the position they're in and think, oh, right, if we invested I don't know, £1 million into the club, we could get them out into the second tier.
Yeah.
And this might be their best opportunity, because I think while the league won't be as strong next year because you'll lose the likes of Birmingham, I think it'll be a lot more competitive with people taking points off each other.
Yeah, 100%. Into the playoffs then. Huddersfield Town, this one, again, we're a point off. I mean, I've got it smack bang on correctly. So again, another victory. I think that's the second one I've got smack bang correct. So another great one for me there. But yeah, we're right, aren't we? Pretty much.
Yeah, we're all four of us are pretty spot on with this one. I think it was kind of an obvious one that they'd be in and around the playoffs. It was just a matter of fact, would they finish in them? But obviously, I think if you get a couple of injuries at Huddersfield, they will fall away. Obviously, they went on that run of losing, I think it was 4 or 5 in a row. But Duff, to be fair to him, has turned it around. Unbeaten in 5 now. So things are looking a bit rosier for Huddersfield, a point off 6th place. But we've got the region right at the quarter way of the season. So I think we can be pretty happy with that one.
Into the top 5 then now, and Peterborough United. This one, if they didn't have such a leaky defence, would be right. Like, genuinely, you think about how many times they've just conceded that few too many goals, and we would be right. But they just the goal scoring is not the issue, but they just seem to not have any central defenders.
No, I think you've described them perfectly in a couple of podcasts before, calling them bipolar. You've got a player like Kwame Poku who could probably play easily in the Championship now. Easy peasy. They've got very good midfielders in Cipriano and Collins. They've got Donnelly, who I think 17-year-old coming through at fullback. But we know Peterborough's recruitment strategy is young players from non-league or abroad, bring them in, develop them and sell them on, which is, to be honest, a perfect way to run a League One club. But that inexperience can falter at times, and we're seeing that this year where you've got clubs like Wrexham, Birmingham, Stockport, Lincoln to an extent, who have bought more ready League One, Mansfield as well, good example, more League One ready players brought into the squad who are much more physical and more mentally developed, that it's catching Peterborough out. But scoring 30, we all know what Peterborough's quality is going forward, and their rotations are excellent. But when it comes to defending set pieces and defending, they're not going to be the best.
Yeah, we just know how bad they are at conceding goals. On to 4th, then Bolton Wanderers. Okay, on paper they're 10th compared to 4th. I've got this spot on again. So, can we stop the count here? I've actually smashed this. But 4th, not too bad for me.
Yeah, I think they're 2 points off 4th. So, and theoretically they were in the playoffs last week. So I think we've got 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Well, 2nd's a bit optimistic, finishing in the playoffs. So yourself, Jamie, and Brighton will be fine. I think as long as you get within 2 or 3 or in the right region, you're okay. And I still think Bolton will be in the top 6, regardless if Everett is still there, because they have individual quality.
I should say I read that completely wrong. I haven't got that spot on. I've had a mare. Anyway, they're on to 3rd place. Rotherham. This one's an absolute mare. 15th place. They're 11 points off. With 1 or 2 or 3 points, we can probably forgive, but 11 points off where we expected them to be. Rotherham having a bit of a shocker.
Yeah, which is surprising to everyone, shall we say. But we don't really care, because Steve Evans' press conferences are amazing when they lose.
It's just funny. And the issue is it's not even that surprising, I don't think. I genuinely think we probably could have predicted it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if we'd have looked at, a Steve Evans side doesn't win leagues. To me, in my head, he doesn't win leagues. I'm sure he has, obviously, but
there's no other than Malik Wilkes, there's no athleticism in that side, really, is there? It's all just units. So yeah, maybe on hindsight, again, with a bit more research, we could probably predicted something different. But I suppose you're on the high hope of, they've got Steve Evans, it's League One, they've signed all these promotion winners. Yeah,
I think this is, I don't want to say this is the biggest shocker of them all, because it's definitely not, but probably 3rd on the list of shockers. Charlton Athletic. The thing is, at the start of the season, it looked like it, and at the end of last season, they looked like a very hard team to beat. But at the minute, they're just I don't want to say that the desire is not there, but they just don't seem to want to play for it at the minute.
It's exactly the same as what happened last year. They started exceptionally well and completely faltered middle of the season. And I saw it coming once they lost their first game. But again, in the predictions we've had, I think we've had 4 mayors in total: Charlton,
Mm.
Mansfield, Wickham, and Rotherham. Other than that,
Yeah.
we've not done horrendously, which is a positive because we sort of know
We'll
our
take
stuff.
it. We'll take it.
But Charlton, in terms of points per game in the last 8, are averaging 0.75, which is the third worst in League One, behind Burton and Wigan. Burton and Crawley. Wigan are just above them with 0.8. So
Yeah. And then first, obviously, I think the one that everyone predicted was Birmingham. I mean, currently second. I'd be shocked if they didn't eventually win the league. You know, they have got that game in hand, which, you know, if they did win, they would go top. So you expect them to probably win in the end.
Yeah,
but
drawn their last 2 as well. I think they're still adapting to the league. Obviously, teams look at them as a big scalp, so evidently they will put that a little bit more into a game like Birmingham. But they're going to finish top 2. I think if they don't, then it's a massive failure.
I think I said if they don't win the league, it's a big failure.
Yeah.
Like even if you've got like an outsider in Wickham, you know, which they are, they're not. Then no one expected them to be up there. Have a look at our predictions. We weren't the only ones who predicted them to be there. I imagine some people would have predicted worse.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not hugely upset that they're currently not winning the league, but I think they will in the end. But yeah, I think that's everything in terms of looking at those predictions. Hopefully, I don't think there's another international break this season. This year. Yeah. So a few months of normal podcasting ahead. We can actually look at the games coming up this weekend, which might be nice. But that's it for this episode of the League One Lowdown. He's been Sam, I've been Callum, and we'll see you in the next podcast.